Emily and Randall are a young couple heading out on vacation to a remote beach house owned by Randall's father, Doc. The place is located in a quiet coastal town, far away from everything, and Emily immediately loves how isolated it feels. For once, they can finally spend time together without anyone bothering them. Not long after arriving, the two head upstairs and relax in the bedroom. But while Emily is in the bathroom, she notices something strange. The house is supposedly abandoned, yet the cabinets are filled with medicine. Downstairs, the kitchen also looks recently used, with leftover food and fresh supplies still sitting inside the refrigerator. A few moments later, a woman suddenly walks into the house, forcing Emily to wake Randall in a panic. It turns out they are not alone after all. The unexpected visitors are a married couple named Jane and Mitch, who claim to be close friends of Randall's father. They even remember meeting Randall when he was still a little kid. Mitch also reveals that he used to work at the same school as Doc nearly 20 years earlier. Emily feels awkward about intruding on their vacation, but Mitch surprisingly does not mind at all. In fact, he encourages them to stay, explaining that they only need one room anyway. Later that evening, Emily pulls Randall aside to talk privately outside the house. While standing near the porch, she notices a strange creature crawling nearby, something that almost looks like a sea organism. Around the same time, Randall finally admits that he never actually asked his father for permission to come there because the two of them are not on good terms anymore, and that was their first warning. Welcome to the beach house.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
That confession only makes Emily more frustrated. Not only did Randall show up uninvited, but he had also suddenly dropped out of school and disappeared from her life without any explanation. Now, out of nowhere, he suddenly wants to take her on a romantic getaway. Randall can only apologize and promise that he truly wants to fix things because he genuinely loves her. Despite the tension, the couple decides to stay the night with Jane and Mitch. The four of them spend the evening eating dinner together and casually sharing stories. Jane and Mitch laugh about funny memories from Randall's childhood, especially the fact that he could never handle eating oysters. During the conversation, Emily talks about her studies in organic chemistry and her plans to continue into astrobiology, a field focused on life in the universe and how organisms adapt to extreme environments. Unlike Emily, who is passionate about education, Randall has no interest in returning to school after dropping out. To him, life is more complicated than simply studying hard and finding a stable job afterward. To ease the tension between everyone, they continue drinking together for the rest of the night. But with only one bottle left in the fridge, Randall suggests trying some legal marijuana instead, so they can all relax and keep the good mood going. At first, Emily is not comfortable with the idea. Jane and Mitch are much older, and Jane is already taking several medications for some unknown condition. Still, the couple eventually agrees, and before long, they are all sitting around together, feeling more relaxed as the night continues. As the effects start kicking in, Emily once again begins talking about life in the universe and the possibility of organisms surviving in extreme environments. Eventually, the group wanders outside, where they notice strange tiny creatures scattered around the area, almost like living microbes. Under the influence, everything starts feeling surreal and strangely fascinating. Jane becomes especially curious about the organisms and slowly approaches one that is attached to a nearby tree. Mitch quickly follows after her, while a thick fog begins spreading through the area outside the house. Meanwhile, Emily suddenly starts feeling sick. A strange smell fills the air, her vision becomes blurry, and before long she collapses unconscious. When she finally wakes up, the entire house is dark and the clock shows 2 in the morning. Moments later, she hears violent coughing followed by vomiting coming from somewhere nearby. Concerned, Emily slowly walks toward a room with the lights still on, but the moment Mitch notices her, he immediately shuts the door. Assuming that Mitch had simply found Jane after she wandered outside earlier, Emily decides not to interfere. She quietly returns to bed and falls asleep beside Randall. That night, she experiences disturbing dreams filled with ocean water and the strange microorganisms they saw earlier, though she assumes it is just the result of being too intoxicated. The next morning, Emily wakes up late and talks about the chaos from the night before, especially Jane getting sick and Randall passing out in the living room. But as soon as Emily heads downstairs, she finds Jane sitting silently by the window, completely spaced out, surrounded by open pill bottles. When Emily asks where Mitch went, Jane barely reacts at all. Instead, she becomes even more disoriented before suddenly walking back upstairs without acknowledging either of them. The next day, Emily and Randall head down to the beach to look for Mitch. But after searching around for a while without finding him anywhere, The two decide to relax for a bit and enjoy the quiet shoreline. Not long after that, Randall suddenly starts feeling sick to his stomach and rushes back to the house. While washing his hands afterward, he notices the water from the sink looks strangely cloudy. Then just as he steps out of the bathroom, he hears loud noises coming from upstairs.
Mr. Turner?
Following the sound, Randall discovers that Jane is still locked in her room, coughing violently. Worried about her condition, he tries to help. At the same time, Emily is left alone at the beach when Mitch suddenly appears beside her out of nowhere. His behavior immediately feels off, but he calmly mentions how happy Jane was to spend time at the beach house. Emily notices something strange about him and starts asking questions about Jane's condition. Mitch brushes everything off as if nothing is wrong. Then, without warning, he removes his shirt and slowly walks toward the ocean. At first, it looks like he is going for a swim, but instead he just keeps walking deeper and deeper into the water until he completely disappears beneath the surface. Even stranger, the shoreline is now covered with dead jellyfish-like creatures scattered everywhere. Emily accidentally steps on one of them, only for a massive worm-like creature to suddenly latch onto her leg. Panicking and in unbearable pain, Emily drags herself back to the house while desperately calling out for Randall. But when she gets inside, the place is completely silent. Fighting through the pain, she manages to pull the creature out of her leg and wrap the wound. Moments later, Randall suddenly crawls into the room looking horribly sick, while Jane slowly follows behind him in an almost inhuman state, with strange fluid leaking from her mouth. Realizing something is terribly wrong, Emily quickly helps Randall escape from the house. Unfortunately, they left the car keys behind, forcing them to flee on foot while Jane continues chasing after them. Emily desperately knocks on neighboring houses asking for help, but nobody answers. Meanwhile, Randall's stomach pain keeps getting worse. He explains that while trying to help Jane earlier, he suddenly blacked out. Before long, a thick, mysterious fog begins covering the area, and it quickly becomes clear that the nearby residents have also been infected. With nowhere else to go, Emily and Randall keep moving through the fog until they finally notice flashing lights in the distance. Hoping they have found help, they rush toward it, only to discover an abandoned police car sitting completely empty. Desperate for help, Emily manages to contact the police through the radio inside the abandoned patrol car. Luckily, someone answers, but instead of sending rescue, the officer urgently tells her to get inside a house immediately because the thing surrounding them is not fog at all, but something far more dangerous. By this point, Emily's vision is already getting blurry. With no time to waste, she smashes a house window and drags Randall inside so they can shelter there. As she starts thinking more carefully about what is happening, Emily comes up with a disturbing theory. If the air itself is contaminated, then the source may have come from the ocean. Maybe it is some kind of algae bloom, or possibly a chemical spill that spread through the atmosphere. But even with her scientific background, she still cannot fully understand it. The house phone is completely dead, and every television channel is broadcasting an emergency alert system warning about an ongoing disaster. Then, while scanning radio frequencies, Emily finally hears a report explaining that microorganisms and ancient bacteria hidden beneath deep-sea rocks have risen to the surface because of geothermal activity. Even after hearing that horrifying news, Emily still believes rescue will eventually arrive. Randall, however, has already started losing hope. His condition keeps getting worse, and he becomes convinced that he is not going to survive. Still, Emily refuses to give up and continues encouraging him to stay alive so they can make it through this together. Trying to protect themselves, Emily seals the doors and windows with tape to stop the fog-like gas from entering the house. Later, while searching the basement, she discovers a scuba oxygen tank, which could provide them with clean air for a little longer. But while Emily searches downstairs, Randall's infection rapidly grows worse. Eventually, he vomits out a living organism, and before long, he begins transforming into the same kind of creature Jane became. At the same time, Emily hears strange noises deeper inside the basement. As she carefully investigates, she discovers a horrifying humanoid mutant feeding on a human corpse. Terrified, Emily grabs the oxygen tank and rushes upstairs before locking the basement door behind her. But by then, Randall is already too far gone. Realizing there is no way to save him anymore, Emily is forced to kill the man she loves. Moments later, she accidentally discovers the missing car keys beneath a table. With no other option left, she quickly gets into the car while breathing through the oxygen tank. Unfortunately, the contaminated air outside has become so thick that Emily can barely see the road. Panicking, she loses control of the vehicle and crashes into a tree. To make things worse, the oxygen tank becomes trapped inside the wrecked car. Desperate to survive, Emily abandons the vehicle and stumbles into the nearby swamp while continuing to breathe the infected air until she finally collapses unconscious. When Emily wakes up again, she finds herself lying on the beach, already infected. Even then, she keeps trying to convince herself not to be afraid, but in the end, the ocean finally claims her. A massive wave crashes onto the shore, pulls Emily into the water, and drags her beneath the sea, where she ultimately dies. So the moral of the story is never smoke random weed near the ocean, with strangers who have a house full of medicine and mystery worms waiting outside.